variance will be permitted. The board may make a decision today. 4 members of the board must vote in favor of the variance for it to be approved. If a variance is approved, the petitioner has 6 months to obtain the necessary permits or establish the use, or it will expire. If the board's decision is unfavorable, the petitioner has the right of appeal to the St. Louis County Circuit Court. This appeal must be done within 30 days of the decision. Ms. Keefe, are there any questions at this time?
Are there any questions on Zoom? Mr. Chair, I see no questions.
Hearing no questions at this time, the meeting will proceed. Will the department please read the first request into the record, which will be followed by a brief slide presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the first item is BA 3323, Matthew and Laura Wilson, 702 White Cliff Place Court, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005, care of Ed Weinhardt, Solid Site Company, 12430 Tesson Ferry Road, Suite 122, St. Louis, Missouri, 63128. Requests an exception to the minimum yard requirements general and the natural resource protection standards and procedures for the purpose of retaining an existing fence, installing 2 proposed landscape walls, and constructing a new 25-foot by 20-foot pavilion with associated concrete paving, all upon the property located at 702 White Cliff Place Court, St. Louis County, locator number 20U11-0354, White Cliff Subdivision, Lot 12. Thereby authorizing a rear yard setback distances of 34 feet in lieu of the 50-foot requirement and 11 feet in lieu of the 30-foot distance for the pavilion with associated concrete paving and the encroachment into the natural resource protection area by the same, along with 2 landscape walls and existing fence. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 420-200 Natural Resource Protection Standard procedures of the subdivision and development regulations of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code as applied to properties located in the R1A 22,000 square foot resident district, Chapter 415.120 R1 22,000 square foot district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, and Planned Residential Development Overlay District, PRD ordinance number 873, which was approved by the Wildwood City Council on September 23rd. This particular is located in Ward 3. And again, before Ms. Keefe begins her slide presentation, the department would like to enter into the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment, from the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, Chapter 415, the zoning ordinance, file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any evidence, testimony, plats, or other items offered as part of tonight's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bunich.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Our first case this evening is a continuation from our last meeting. The petitioners have since taken their plans from that meeting, met with the department, and revised them, which is being presented tonight. However, for the benefit of alternate sides who was not with us at that time, I am going to go ahead and give you a brief slideshow presentation. So here we go. The subject site is in the White Cliff subdivision, which is in northeastern Wildwood, just south of Valley Road and on the west side of Strucker Road. It is a 20-lot subdivision, which is on a 20-acre tract of land, 13 acres of which are protected by the city's natural resource protection standards. The subject property is located upon a cul-de-sac serving 5 lots. It is zoned R1A 22,000 square foot residence district with a planned residential development overlay district, which was approved in 2002. This applied the setback requirements for the lot and the natural resource protection standards as they're applied to the site. Natural resource protection standards are in place to protect areas of the site most susceptible to erosion and to stormwater runoff. The overall relief of the site is 40 feet with the dwelling on the highest portion of the lot. There is a tiered retaining wall system that was put in place by the developer, which is supporting these lots. The dwelling is surrounded by grassy turf area, and towards the rear of the lot, it is primarily woodland cover. Tonight, the petitioners are requesting to build a new 20-foot by 26-foot pavilion in their rear yard, which is associated with their swimming pool area. Along with this pavilion is associated concrete, 2 landscape walls no more than 18 inches in height, and an existing fence that is also needing a variance tonight. As noted at the beginning, the petitioners have revised their plans since the last meeting, along with input from the department, and they have submitted a drainage plan, which is included in your materials tonight and is also before you on the slides. This is the front of the residence looking northeast. This is looking southeast along Wycliffe Place Court. And this is looking southwest. This is looking northeast at the rear yard of the lot. This is also northeast in perspective to the rear of the home. This is looking north towards the residences to the rear. And this is also looking north. This is looking north from the east side of the residence. And this is looking northwest towards the pool area. This is looking south towards the eastern neighbor of the property. This is their rear yard. And we are at the top of the retaining wall system, looking northeast here on the east side of the dwelling. The department has received 4 public comments opposed to the request. One neighbor submitted 2 comments, so 2 of those comments are from one person. And they maintain their position from the last meeting. That concludes my presentation this evening. If you have any questions for the department at this time, Director Vunich and I are available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. This time, will the petitioner please come forward, state his or her name, address, relation to the property, and then be sworn in by the court reporter?
Hi, Laura Wilson, 702 Wycliffe Place Court, Wildwood 63005,
In relation to the property,
owner of property.
get you sworn in as well.
My name is Matt Wilson, 702 Wycliffe Place Court, Wildwood, Missouri 63005, and owner of the property.
Please raise your right hand.
Raise your hand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, if you could, I'm sorry, please explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance.
So we wanted to put the pool house within our fence lines where our trampoline once was. And yeah, I wasn't really prepared to I was thinking we were past that. You go.
Yes.
Yeah, we're wanting to enlarge our pool area, as we had spoken before in the previous meeting. You know, for safety reasons and also because of the growth of our family as well. As you can see, I mean, the previous patio that we have around our pool right now is rather small. And, you know, we, as we stated before, we plan on staying in Wildwood. Laura and I plan on owning the house till, you know, unfortunately, maybe one day till we die, or maybe one of our kids take over it. So we plan on staying there, and we would like to grow it, the house, and expand with this, so we have more room in the backyard to entertain with our family and enjoy it more than we have now. Yeah.
Yes, and we've been there 18 years and have started having grandchildren, and we just feel like it would be a really wonderful thing, you know, for our family to have more usable space around the pool area that could create like a safe place for all the kids
So
and
kids.
play.
Are you able to pull up the picture of the backyard again? I think that's important. Just as a recap, last time, I think there was some confusion in, you know, going inside or outside the fence and where's that fence is being moved or anything like that. I just want to recap that, especially for member sides. Any other questions for Mr. or Mrs. Wilson?
Yeah, I do. So in the diagram that we have,
Yes.
it shows a couple of dry creek swales. I'm assuming that that's there to capture the water
Right.
that comes off the pavilion.
Yes, they aren't there yet.
They're not there yet. What we're planning on doing is putting those down there
Right.
for the drainage to go and collect down there. We're going to use some of the existing rock that we have where our trampoline used to be. And then the company that's coming in to do the drainage and everything will be putting more down there to collect, you know, all the runoff that would cause, you know, from rain and everything.
So I guess, and that's a concern, of course, of neighbors and so forth,
Mhm.
is how do you deal with this runoff water, right? Were there any calculations created for how much of a retention area? I don't know if it's really a retention area. It's just that dry creek. I mean, it's kind of a retention area. Has there been any kind of calculations for like how much rain it could hold?
It's never even filled up without I mean, it's
No, there was no calculations done for these right here.
Uh-huh.
But there's, the whole time that we've lived there, you know, down at from where our hill is, from where our house is, all the runoff runs down the hills, and down at the bottom of our subdivision where this all runs into, there's a whole sewer system that collects the majority of all that water that's running down from the eastern side, I guess, of the
Yeah.
hill that runs to the front of our subdivision. So all that's running down into there, then down into the sewers down there, into that direction.
Mhm.
Now on the northwestern side, that's all down there. There's really no homes or anything down there. That all runs down into the natural resources down there, into the woods and everything. So that's where all that water's running to.
I think
down
that the person that we hired, it's called Expert Restoration and Landscaping, and they specialize in erosion control. I think that was just an extra thing. What do we do with all this rock? How do we mitigate this to protect our hillside? I think that he didn't actually really see a drainage issue. And then it's almost like a perfect little gully on each side that you can just kind of put the rocks in to gather any additional runoff.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like where the pavilion is, it's like right at the crest,
Oh, there's no.
right at the
question.
crest.
It's
And
gonna
so
be-
water's gonna run both ways. Okay, and then that dry creeks. I'm a little bit of trouble talking tonight, but the dry creek swale. You know, I'm assuming is somewhat level, even though it's on the downhill side, so that it can actually pool there a little bit before
For,
dissipates or drains or does whatever. Is that right?
yes,
Yes.
that's what.
Is that
we're
what they're
planning on
doing?
It's
Okay.
almost like in a perfect little gully, like
Yeah.
it just kind of
Yeah.
fits in there and then yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
I believe member Lee, you expressed some thoughts and concerns, and it appears that they were addressed, unless you think otherwise.
Yeah, this was my suggestion. The staff can review that and check a storm runoff calculation basically for impervious pavement, and this is intent would be to slow the water down so it leaves the site at the same rate that it would have without the pavilion. So that's how that technically works, and staff will do that. Questions?
Yeah. So what did you change, just for my benefit? Those two, those swales, is that the only?
Well, the drainage was one of the main ones, and also the previous plans were stating us going outside of our original fence line that you see up there and going back into the wooded area more, which we're not doing. We're staying within our original fence line that's back there right now that you see in the photos. We will not be extending outside of our fence whatsoever. And what we've actually done, we have one large oak tree at the north corner there, and our builders actually brought that pavilion a little bit further, closer to the pool to help prevent any
Actually,
damage to that tree as well.
The horticulture, the expert restoration, that guy suggested, because we were gonna do a 25 by 25. He said, pull it further because he wanted to be a certain distance away from that oak tree, the oak tree's roots. So we're actually even kind of be almost butted up to our pool, which will be lovely also,
Yeah,
but.
I mean, the last thing we want to do is cause any, harm or damage to the existing trees back there or anything like that. We want to add more to it back there, with the new landscape and everything, so. But I think that was the the major changes that we've done. We've brought it all with inside the fence now. And then the drainage, because Mr. Lee, that was one of his major concerns too on the previous meeting, was the drainage. Where's all this water going to be going from, since we're going to be putting that building up? So we kind of, came back with these plans, had them figured up, planned up and everything. So these are our new plans.
This is really a deceiving scale in this drawing. Because it looks like if you just turn the whole thing to the left, it would fit with room to spare. And that what goes toward the 75-foot line in the back. See what I'm saying?
It falls off. It's actually,
It's square, the way that they have it set up right now, it's square with the house. So
Yeah, I
it's
get that.
square, yeah. So,
But the house, that's not the problem, though. It's the setback is the issue. What I'm
Right.
saying is, if you look at the drawing, taking it to the left, looks like you'd have plenty of setback, and
put the pavilion up towards the northwest a little bit.
yeah,
You're saying kind
it
of
just
turn it
wouldn't be
up a little-
square with the house. Be square with that back piece of the property.
It'd be more, you're suggesting it'd probably be a little bit more square with the pool as well.
feel
At
like
an
I
angle.
think you would, yeah.
to pocket to the left.
Doesn't look like it's a huge drop either way, but
It is definitely a larger drop off over that way, over on the northwest side. Would you agree with that, Joe? I'm sorry if that was wrong for me.
Mr. Sides, all I will say is regardless of where the pavilion might shift, they need a variance through the natural resource protection standards. And as you can see, the dark red line is the setback requirement. So for all intents and purposes, they have to do such a small pavilion to stay within the bounds of the setback requirements that probably wouldn't even be worth attempting. So I guess the department's position has been there's a need for at least two variances regardless of how we orientate the pavilion, or for the most part, a reasonable size, excuse me.
so we're working on two variances. One's for setback and one's for the natural resource.
That's correct, sir.
Joe, I'd like to double back just for a second to the size of the dry creeks. Has the department looked at that and said, yeah, that should be adequate for the amount of runoff from the roof of the pavilion and the hard surface?
The department has reviewed the information that was submitted. And from the department's perspective, it seems a little bit more than actually is necessary. Yeah,
Okay.
remember the concrete paving will be primarily under the pavilion roof. So
Right.
not really creating 1,000 square feet of impervious surface, just 500, roughly an acre plus lot. The thing that I discovered on the site visit, and I was a bit surprised, is that there were no erosion scars on either side of the bridge caused by either the pool and the concrete decking in association with that or the home itself. For the most part, it looks like there's an equilibrium. But again, what Mr. Lee mentioned is we'll take a look at the calculations of the amount of runoff that can be anticipated now with all impervious surfaces. But my guess is we could probably shrink those swales a bit. And that's just my guess, right?
Okay, so the department's going to look at that and just make sure that the swales are at an adequate size.
Certainly.
Okay,
certainly.
all right, thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, in the past, similar variance requests as this, we've made a contingent upon continued coordination with the department and the drainage and just to kind of get their sign off on that. Is that a contingency you guys would be okay with?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Yes, we want to just to, whatever is going to work for all of us, you know, we're happy to switch anything, or we're very flexible with this.
We agree to the continuance.
Yeah, and I think the department's also mentioned, just to kind of for clarification, the downspouts and the gutters and downspouts would be connected to these swales to ensure that that water is okay.
Correct. Yes.
Any other questions for the petitioners?
It looks like the HOA signed up on it.
Mhm.
All the neighbors, we have several letters. They were all in full support. Like we said, we are the first people that were up there for 18 years. So we're calling this 18 2.0, you know, to grow with our expanding family if it all works out. So
What was the one against? What was their issue?
was it somebody at
I believe there's a neighbor down below, so in the subdivision below, it's on the other side of Strucker, was concerned about the runoff down there. Yeah, which again, I think we'll be taking care of that.
it's a long way up there too. I don't see it's
Yeah, there's a sewer in between us and them, and there's a lot of ground in between us and them for that moisture to, I mean, it'd have to be a pretty torrential rain. Yeah, but I'm not an expert there either, so I'll leave it at that.
Well, I've been a victim of that myself,
Mm-hmm.
living across the street from somebody who,
we've really
Yeah.
never had any erosion in these 18 years that we've been there, had any
No.
issues whatsoever, knock on wood, which is good.
And if you would come out and, you know, we'd love for you to come out too, Mr. Sykes, and take a look at. If you look at the property now, we've been there 18 years, and you're not gonna see hardly any erosion whatsoever. Since we've been there, since the whole neighborhood's been there, actually.
I understand all that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell you this, that I spent a lot of years in construction myself. And I'm a president of my subdivision, and any little change makes changes you cannot fathom until it's done. I'll just tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Joe can do his calculations and, I mean, I guess that's the best we got to go on, but yeah, I mean, I don't blame the people down below for being weary of
Oh,
water.
I'm not.
I,
saying that.
I've seen personally what it does. Okay, guess that's all of my questions.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, any speakers in the audience that may want to speak in favor or opposition to the request? See,
Mr. Chair, I do not see any raised hands on that.
would anyone like to hear the oral presentation of the department's findings report? Seeing none. At this time, the Department of Planning, take the opportunity to make any final comments. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the board, the department has revised its recommendation report relative to this request based upon the changes that Mr. Sides had asked be identified as part of the testimony tonight and the site visit that was referenced when I responded to a question. I do want to emphasize the plan has changed. All of the improvements now are contained in an area that has already been in constant use over the past 18 years, meaning that if there were going to be issues, they probably would have arisen either through the placement of the trampoline, the temporary movable trampoline, or just the continued use of the turfed area. Additionally, the larger retaining walls have now been replaced by 2 landscape-sized retaining walls, which really don't hold much of a charge, meaning it's not there more so than anything for aesthetic purposes. Also, the fence that extended to the property line has been again removed, and now we're just looking at what's been there for the most part since the pool was installed now almost 20 years ago. Also, as requested by Mr. Lee and the rest of the board members, a drainage plan has been provided. Initial review of the drainage plan seems to indicate that we'll have a successful approach to managing the additional runoff caused by impervious surface. I do want to emphasize again that during the site visit, the property has experienced what I believe is good stewardship, and there were no erosion scars anywhere in the rear yard area where the slopes are the greatest. And so from that perspective, the department is supporting this request at this time. And if there are any questions regarding any of the information in the report, Ms. Keefe and I'd be glad to address them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Vunich. At this time, any final comments from the board?
Just want to be clear on something. So Joe, have you done all your calculations or is that something you're going to do as far as that?
For the most part, we looked at what we believe is the general amount of runoff we would experience during what we consider typical storms, if there is such things. But the precise calculations will be done by our assistant city engineer. And due to Rockwood School District spring break, he's been out this week, but that'll be something we do to guarantee, again, as Mr. Lee described, that the swales are sized to the amount of runoff we anticipate. And we've had, not to belabor this, but we've had really good success with what we call rock sumps, something similar to this, where the water's deposited in basically a sump area that's full of rock. You can even plan on it, put the topsoil on top and get grass to grow. And so it's just been a real successful approach. And we're requiring them across the board, whether it's a large lot on a single family, on a 10-acre property, or down to even the smallest now 5,000 square foot lots if they're done individually outside of subdivision. So stormwater is a major priority and we're doing the best we can, Mr. Sides. And we will do our best to make sure if the board grants this variance, there are no ill effects downstream.
So those calculations are done in conjunction with the permit? Is that how that
Yes,
was?
yes. What we do, just so you know, we'll take this permit. Planning and Parks, the Department of Planning and Parks will do the zoning components, all of those things. And then we send it to Public Works and they do all the calculations relative to grading, stormwater runoff, and anything along those lines. And then finally, our code enforcement team goes out with the contractor and does the pre-construction meeting to make sure that everything we've required is in place before any disturbance occurs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions, final comments from the board? Seeing none, at this time, we'll close the proceeding for a vote. I have a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or approve with conditions.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the variance request, conditioned upon the items mentioned in the department's recommendation section. There's a lot there, so I'm not going to try and read all that into the record, but basically a motion to approve based on the contingent upon what's in the recommendation.
We have a motion to approve with the conditions as stated in the department's report. We have a second for that.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Science. Mr. Morris, how do you vote? Approve. Mr. Sides,
Approve.
Mr. Sprunger,
Approved.
Mr. Lee,
Approve.
and I approve as well. Congratulations, your variance is approved with the conditions as stated. Thank you. We will move right along to the second request, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the next item is BA 7-24, Victor and Amelia Gray, 1045 Highway 109, Wildwood, Missouri 63038. Request an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of installing a replacement generator upon the property located at 1045 Highway 109, located number 21W 610064. Which would thereby authorize a northern front yard setback distance of 15 feet in lieu of the required 50-foot standard from the property line. The property has 3 frontages, and this one of them being Rosemar Lane, here identified as the northern front yard. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.090 and the non-urban district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance. Property is located in Ward 3. Again, Mr. Chair, with your permission, before Ms. Keefe provides the slide presentation, the department would like to approve to the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, Chapter 415, the zoning ordinance. The file that has been developed and maintained by the department regarding this particular request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any testimony, items, plats, maps, or other evidence entered as part of this request at tonight's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Munich. Ms. Keefe?
Mr. Chair, members of the board. Our second case this evening is located in northern Wildwood along Highway 109. The subject lot is currently occupied by a single-family dwelling with a long history. This single-family dwelling was built in 1854 and is one of the oldest structures in the City of Wildwood, oldest residential buildings. And it was potentially used as a school at one time. But that is not as relevant to our case as the fact that the subject lot is 1.73 acres in size. It is a legal lot of record, though not meeting the minimum lot area requirements as required by the non-urban residence district. Important to the facts of the case, the property does have 3 roadways surrounding it on 3 sides, including Rosemar Lane, which is a private roadway to the north, and is not featured, unfortunately, on this aerial. To the east, we have Highway 109, which is maintained by MoDOT. And then to the south is Paradise Drive, which is also a private roadway of the subdivision. Per the non-urban residence district regulations, all 3 sides then of this lot are subject to front yard setback distance requirements, requiring 50 feet from the roadway or the roadway easement or from the property line. The house, as you can see in this aerial, is on the far eastern and northern side of the property, with the dwelling just 20 feet from the northern property line. The lot is fairly level. The majority of it is grassy turf with dispersed trees throughout it. There is a heavily wooded portion along Rosemar Lane and that northern border of the property. The petitioners are requesting to install a whole house generator, a Kohler 20 kilowatt of a certain model type, which I've included in the report. This generator is proposed to be 15 feet from the northern property line, and the logic for its placement is that it is close to the electrical panel in that location. Furthermore, it is probably the most hidden spot on the property, as there is a solid white privacy fence all around there from the northern corner of the house along Rosemar Lane and that northern property line. And there is also a hot tub and tree stump in this location that further hides it from view. This is the front view of the dwelling looking northwest. This is the generator and its proposed placement behind the solid white privacy fence. In this direction here, if you can see my pointer behind you, we have Highway 109. Over here is Rosemar Lane, so you can kind of get a sense of where we are. This is Highway 109 to the northwest. Highway 109 looking southeast. And then this is Highway 109 in proximity to where it intersects with Rosemar Lane. This is Rosemar Lane, and then here is that white privacy fence over here. So that's another view of the generator behind that fence. This is the rear yard looking west. This is looking southwest towards Paradise Drive. This is looking north towards Rosemar Lane. This is looking south towards Paradise Drive, corner of the petitioner's residence. And then this is also their property looking west outside of the fenced area. And then this is a photo provided by the petitioners. Here we are looking north from the Paradise Drive area into the fenced in portion of the lot. And the generator would be in that back corner. A couple neighbors have indicated support for this request. The department has also received questions from one neighbor who has not yet established a firm position, but has some questions. And that concludes my presentation at this time. If you have any questions for the department, Director Vunich and I are available to answer them. Yes.
So I do have a quick question. In the one picture where the generator is supposed to, is the generator already there and installed?
I don't believe it's installed. I think they just brought it out while we're, yeah. That was.
He was just. Yep, that's what I was gonna say. Just a moment, hold that thought. Sorry to interrupt you, but we'll let Ms. Keefe kind of conclude her thoughts and we'll.
Petitioner respond to that after there's.
Yep, it's okay. Anything else, Ms. Keefe, before we call the petitioner up?
Yeah, so while we got that picture up, that thing to the right, is that an air conditioner or is that the other generator?
Yeah, that's a better question for the
So
petitioner.
there is a current generator there somewhere, no? Because it says replacement, doesn't it?
I will let the petitioner come
Okay.
exercise if you
Maybe
want.
questions are maybe more appropriately
Yeah.
directed. Thank you.
Without further ado, will the petitioner please come forward, state his or her name, address, relation to the property, and we'll get you sworn in.
Victor Gray, 1045 Highway 109, Wildwood, 63038. And I am the owner of the house with my wife, Amy.
I'm Amelia/Amy Gray, 1045 Highway 109, Wildwood, 63038.
Mr. and Mrs. Gray, we'll get you sworn in here.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you.
I do. Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Gray, please state the nature of the request to the hardship or practical difficulty and necessity in the variance.
Okay, so we would like to have a new generator installed. We currently do not have a generator, a permanent one. What's in there is the air conditioner. That's what you're seeing off to the corner. This generator in this location is close to the house. It is completely hidden pretty much from any neighbor. As was noted, our house is very old and it does not meet many of it's a grandfathered property, so it doesn't meet many of the requirements for that side of Highway 109. It is a 1.7, I think she said 3. I always round up to 5, at 1.75 acres. It's not the 3-acre minimum. And we are right on Highway 109. Originally, we wanted the generator placed closer to the fence, but it got moved to this location because of its distance from 109. I don't think that the distance from Rosemar was considered because I don't think the contractor understood that that was potentially frontage.
As well,
Well, I didn't either.
because you can't even really see the road from where, you can't see Rosemar from where the
Right.
generator is placed.
Right. We do have a privacy fence along that whole wall. On the other side of Rosemar, it's a wooded lot. The other location for the generator would actually be in the location you're looking at now, further out in the yard, where it would be visible from the neighbors, and it would be potentially encroaching on our leach line and septic tank, because that's where all of our septic is located.
Anything else you'd like to add?
If you have questions, I'm not sure I have anything more to add.
Any questions for the petitioner?
So back to that picture we were just looking at, where's the generator going from there? Is it coming closer to the house or is it
Our hope is that we can have it right there.
right there? That's where
Right,
you want.
that's where we want it. Originally, well, you need to talk about that more than, I wasn't there.
When contractor came out and placed it on that location, his phone he had a phone that he's like, okay, because we wanted it closer to Highway 109. And he's like, no, see, it shows it's got to be right here. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll just put it right there. It's you can see the dirt area there. That's actually the ditch that was dug. That is directly in line with our service entrance on the outside of where the breaker box is inside of our house. The proposed movement would be 15 feet this direction, straight west, basically, to get it closer to, and even there, it's not within the 50-foot minimum. So it would actually have to probably be like 25 feet, which would be almost in the middle of the yard, where on the previous photo, you can see the vent from the septic tank there. And so it's like kind of like right in the middle of the yard, where there, it's out of pretty much everyone's view.
And it's close to the electric and
Where
the
the service
propane
is.
tank, which you can kind of see the corner of the propane tank
Yeah.
on the left
Right in
picture.
between. And, yeah, as far as the placement, I'm not, it's so old. We're not exactly sure where that northeast pin is on our property. Tried to find it, can't find it. And, we think it's okay where it is, but we'll do whatever is required.
So where it's at is where you'd like it.
Where it's at, where it currently is where we are good with it. But yes, that's where we want it.
Yeah, and that's where the contractor said he was
Originally
told
thought it was supposed
it was
to be.
supposed to be.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Gray.
Okay, thank you.
We'll open up the floor to any speakers in the audience that may want to speak in favor or opposition to this request.
Mr. Chair, there is one individual online who I believe might be associated with it. Just give them a minute to speak. Miss, oh, yes. Here.
Hello,
Hello there. If you could please state your name, address, any relation to this property, and we'll get you sworn in.
my name's Chris Canali. My personal address is 8 Lords Court, Lake St. Louis, Missouri, 63367. My relationship to the contractor, I'm the general manager of the company they contracted to install and service the generator.
Okay, Mr.
Tri-State
Canali,
Power
we'll
and
get-
Water.
Thank you. We'll get you sworn in here.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you.
Please proceed, Mr. Canali.
the ultimate position of the generator was following the initial requirements of the highway. We do know and follow those restrictions, knowing there's nothing that can be adjusted to make it fit, even if the customer wanted it to be that way. The location it is now is just what they said. The location is consistent with the distance of safety from the propane tank to the power box, and it is completely hidden from the public. Notably, I do have St. Louis County Code that offers the guidance of how far something does or does not need to be from a property line, and their requirements, which I do have available, are only 10 feet. That does not include a highway, but it is 10 feet from an associated property line. And if anything is necessary from Tri-State or myself, I'll be happy to supply that.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments for speaker? Seeing none. Would anyone like an opportunity to hear the oral report of the department's findings? Seeing none. This time, does the Department of Planning want to make any final comments pertaining to this petition?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the department is supporting this request. In this case, the department's position is this does appear to be the most logical position on the lot for this generator. As noted in the report, it is still located over 50 feet away from the pavement of Rosemar Lane. So there's a pretty substantial buffer there between the property line and Rosemar. And then also it is 300 feet from the residence on that wooded lot to the north of Rosemar Lane. And it is hidden from view from virtually everywhere. So those are our comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other final comments from the board? This time we will close the proceeding for a vote. Can I have a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or approve with conditions?
To approve.
Thank you, Mr. Sides. Do we have a second to approve?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Mr. Morris, how do you vote? Mr. Sides?
Approve.
Mr. Sprunger?
Approve.
Mr. Lee?
Approve.
And I approve as well. Congratulations, your variance is approved. Move right into the third variance request, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the board, the final request before the board tonight is BA 8-24, John and Carmen Rawls, 237 Clayton Oaks Drive, Ellisville, Missouri, 63011. Request an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of constructing a single-family dwelling upon the property located at 315 Slice Lane, located number 19W 420026. Which would thereby authorize a side yard setback distance of 20.5 feet in lieu of the required 30-foot standard on its southern side. The request is contrary to the requirements of chapter 415.090 NU non-urban resident district regulations of the city of Wildwood zoning ordinance. An identical request was authorized by the Board of Adjustment on September 16, 2021. This particular property is located in Ward 1. Again, with the permission of the chair, before Ms. Keith presents the department's slide presentation, the department would like to enter into the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Of that same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, Chapter 415, the zoning ordinance. The file that has been maintained and has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any testimony, exhibits, plats, or other items offered as testimony tonight as part of this particular request. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Munoz.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our last case this evening, as noted in the agenda language, is identical to a case that was approved by this board in September 16th, 2021. The variance did expire when the petitioner's project was delayed for personal reasons, but the petitioners are ready to continue forward again, which is why we're here this evening. The subject lot for this case is located in far northern Wildwood at the intersection of Highway 109 and Wild Horse Creek Road. The lot has frontage on both Sice Lane and Highway 109 at its rear property line. The lot is currently vacant. It's rectangular in shape and narrow, with a width of 121 feet and a depth of 360 feet. It is 1.0 acres in size, so it is a legal lot of record, but it is non-conforming to the 3-acre lot minimum of the non-urban residence district of which it is a part. This district does require a 50-foot front yard setback and 2 30-foot side yard setbacks from either side. There is also a 50-foot rear yard setback in this case due to the presence of Highway 109. The front of this portion is relatively flat where the proposed dwelling is to be placed. But it should be noted and is noted on the plans that there is a 20% grade change just beyond the building site. The property then becomes very heavily wooded towards its rear. The overall relief of it is 45 feet. The petitioners are requesting to construct a new single-family dwelling in this location. And their request this evening is for the southern side yard setback distance to be adjusted to 20.5 feet in lieu of 30 feet. And they note in their application that the lot is very narrow, which only allows for 60 feet of width for the structure, which constricts the building area, particularly when the grade change is also considered. And it should be noted also that the rear of the property, again, it abuts Highway 109 and may be needed for improvements to it in the future. And this is just a closer view. I guess I'll just point out this red line is that 20.5 foot setback. And then this is the 30-foot required by the non-urban residence district, the green line. Here we're looking southwest at the subject property. Here we're looking southeast. This is Sice Lane, and this is the lot across from the subject lot, and this is the subject lot. This is looking west upon the subject lot, and here you can see the northern neighbor. This is looking north. This is looking southeast And no, the grass did not magically become green. I did reuse some photos from the previous case because I felt they showed the slope fairly well. This is looking south. And this is looking north. We have received 2 comments for this request, both in opposition to it, including the neighbor that is cat-a-corner to the south. And that concludes my presentation. The other comment was taken over the telephone, and it was within the notification area, but I don't believe it's in this area right here. Thank you. If you have any questions at this time, the department is available to answer them.
Robin, did you say that this variance, not this one, but a variance request for this very same property happened in 2021
Yes,
and it was approved?
and it was approved.
So this is the very same variance request, kind of?
Absolutely identical to it. The
Absolutely
the plans have not changed.
Okay, and the reason we're doing this is because it expired.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other initial questions for the department?
Did you have the same complaints at that time?
I would need to review the file. I do not believe we had those same complaints at that time. I can look it up when I get to my seat while the petitioners are making their case.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe.
All right, thank you.
At this time, will the petitioner please come forward, state his or her name, address, relation to the property, and we'll get you sworn in by the court reporter.
John Rouse, 237 Clayton Oaks Drive, Ellisville, Missouri, 63011.
And your relation to the property, Mr. Rouse.
Owner.
Get you sworn in here.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Rouse, if you could please explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating this variance.
Like what was stated, the lot is a very narrow lot and with the setback on 30 feet on both sides. It's almost impossible for me to draw a plan to fit my family the size house that I want. So it's going to be a longer house. And it's the exact same plan that we drew up in 2021. It's just had some medical issues with my wife. So we delayed construction on it. And now we feel like we're ready to go forward with it.
Anything else you'd like to add?
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rouse. Any initial questions from the board?
No.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please, Ms. Keefe.
I can't hear anything.
Courtney, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I was just telling the board that I was correct that there were no public comments in 2021 pertaining to this case.
At this time, we will open up the floor for any speakers in the audience who may want to speak in favor or opposition to this request. Thank you, Mr. Rouse. You could please state your name, address, relation to this property, and we'll get you sworn in.
My name is John Schlegel. I live at 324 CYS Lane. It's in Wildwood, 63005.
We'll get you sworn in.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Proceed.
I'd like to start off with three things. One, a little bit about myself and why I'm here. Two, kind of give you some history of Size Lane. And then three, my assessment of this recommendation. And just for the record, I was not notified in 21 of this. First time I heard about it was about 3 days ago. And did you put up the stand today? It was one. It's been laying down in the ground for 3 or 4 days. So that's the only way I saw it was I drove by and I saw it laying on the ground, and that's how I got this notice. Usually I get them in the mail, but that's the only time I got it was by myself 2 or 3 days. Like I said, I'm John Schlegel, and I purchased the property on 324 Size Lane in December of 1982. And I've lived there since then. In fact, when the neighbors passed away on 311 and 312, their property became rental property. That said, Deb and I are the only resident owners of property on Size Lane. Nobody else owns and lives there except us. That's it. In 2004, 312 Size Lane, the property owner passed away, and it was purchased as a rental property. In 2013, 311, which is the house across the street, she was taken in for extended care, and it was also purchased for rental property. So now we've got 2 rental properties on our street. There are 5 locations that access Size Lane. 3 of them, one of them is ours, has houses on them. The other 2 are vacant. The vacant one is 9.9 acres, which is owned by, it's either Deerbergs or First Bank. That's the property that surrounds my property, our property, and borders the property for 315. I'm opposed to the granting the variance for a couple of reasons. Although the land is narrow, the buyer knew this at the beginning. And the initial purchase and a substantial home still could be built on here, but doesn't have to be 60 feet. It can be 55 or 50. There is a grade change as you go west, but it's not that bad. I mean, you could still use it as a walkout basement. The west side of the property is not heavily wooded. You can stand on Size Lane at 315 and look west, and you can see the traffic on 109 right now. So it's not that heavily wooded. Maintaining the 30-foot variance for Size Lane properties will keep the open country, if you will, appeal, and not like a subdivision where houses are maybe 10 or 15 feet apart. And building a home with the required 30 feet variance will maintain the residency character of the area, but only if somebody's going to own it and live there. Based upon above, I'm not in favor of the 30-foot easement. And in closing, if I have any questions I can answer for you, just let me know.
What was your name again?
John Schlegel.
Schlegel, okay.
It's SCHLEGEL.
Are you north of this property or the?
No, if you could pull up the last one you have, it's got to be X on it or a check mark.
I think that's southeast.
Okay.
Yes,
15.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little over 3 acres there. And then that kind of L-shaped around me, that's the 9.9 acres.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, since I'm already speaking, just for the record, I'm gonna say I agree with everything you just said, and that's what I was gonna say if you didn't say it. So
Thank you.
that's how I feel about that part. Because obviously, when you buy the land, you know, it's got a challenging problem. There's all kinds of challenging lots with challenges all over Wildwood. And I don't know why it's incumbent on the people who don't want the rule change to have the people who are asking for the rule change to have to abide by that, just to appease the new owner, in my opinion. So that's all I got to say.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Schlegel?
I don't really have a question for you. I mean, I get the notion that it's a narrow property and that always creates a challenge for how you develop it. I get that. I do understand that it wasn't a mystery when the owner purchased it. Actually, I think I may have a question for the petitioner. Have you
Have you take a seat, Mr. Schlegel, and have Mr. Rouse come back up, please? I'm sorry? Okay, we'll address with Mr. Rouse and then we'll call you back up.
Yeah. So when you put together your plans for your home, did you consider a set of plans that would actually make you compliant?
Yeah, we tried to get fit. By the time you put a septic and the well, because there's no county water, there's no sewer. And by the time you put all that, you're really, really shrinking the lot down to making where the house fits. As far as Mr. Schlegel, we're not even next to his lot. He's across the street. So I don't see how it would, all we're
Well-
doing is increasing his property value, really, because there's all the other two houses on there are basically tear downs, because the gentleman who bought them, I talked to him, and right now he is renting them, but eventually he is going to be tearing them down.
So, okay, I'm gonna poke at this just a little bit more. You did or didn't try and come up with a house?
We did try, but by the time you put the garage in the house, it's and going back 50 feet, it doesn't really show it on the lot, but it really drops off towards 109. And I was trying to avoid going that far back to that drop off. I did not want that.
Yeah,
And now
and-
with the circle going in there, they're taking a lot of trees out in the back of that lot. Because of the roundabout that's going in on 109, because the contractor contacted me on it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, just because of the dimensions of your lot.
Right.
If you move it west, you're still gonna be in the 30-foot setback unless you change the layout of your home.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I was trying to avoid having to go farther back. I did not want that big of a drop off down into the ravine. And I didn't want a front entry garage. I wanted a side.
Mr. Rouse, it's your intention to live there?
Yes, it
Not
is.
to rent it?
Yep, I'm not renting it. I'm moving it.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Lee.
Joe, I'm gonna have to put you on the spot. What year did we walk this when we were out there looking at the station on the corner, and then we walked this whole neighborhood? It was when we were doing the zoning. I can't remember.
Nor can I.
But I guess where I'm leading this is I'm sure these narrow lots did not have the setback criteria that we established when we set the zoning for the NU district.
Before 1995, September of 1995, the side yard setback was 20 feet. That was the county standard for the non-urban district. The city of Wildwood Incorporated, we increased that by 10 feet to 30. So.
Joe, I can't hear you.
Prior to the incorporation of the city, the side yard setback in the non-urban district, which is different than the non-urban resident district of the city, was 20 feet. City increased it by 10 feet to 30 feet. And my suspicion is that all of the other residences were constructed with a 20-foot side yard setback, not a 30 by their age.
That's what I thought when we were walking this, because these are very narrow lots and it forces a very skinny house. As far as the plan goes, and this is for the owner and the rest of the board here, he could put a front facing garage and get this to work. But the side entry garage is more preferred, for the country estate look. From what we've done in NU districts from planning and zoning. So I just wanted to offer that up as an opinion, but yeah, I think this is a hardship that the city kind of dumped on this with these older lots that are historic.
Thank you, Member Lee.
So
Mr.
when was the 30-foot setback established versus the 20, what year?
Not quite sure what's wrong with all the microphones, but September 1st, 1995, shortly thereafter, about 3 weeks later, we amended the zoning ordinance. And for the most part, we increased all the rear yard setbacks from 15 feet to 30 feet, and all side yard setbacks in the non-urban resident district from 20 feet to 30 feet.
30 feet. That was in 95. Okay. And when was this property purchased?
Mr. Alstein.
I can't hear anything.
Mr. Rouse, if you could just come up and state your belief of when.
2011.
Were you aware of what the setback
No, I
requirements?
was not at that time.
Okay.
I can't tell by looking at it. Do we know how old that house is to the north?
Mr. Sides asked how old the house is to the north.
I mean, obviously it looks like he didn't have a setback problem, but I understand it's a lot smaller house. Yeah, it's a problem for everybody. Yeah. I mean, I know Mr. Schlegel doesn't live next door, but I do think about the guy who lives next door. And if it was me living there, I would not want, because you got about the same size lots. I would not want that encroachment onto my free space. Because that's what Wildwood is supposed to be about.
Not to correct you, Mr. Sides, but they're not encroaching on that side. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That's not.
I think they are.
No, it would be into the woods.
on the south
It would be
side.
into the woods.
Only on one side?
Correct. Because of the 30 each side. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, I think so. So in order
The
to,
driveway doesn't?
I believe, or I'll let Mr. Rouse, but it looks like they shifted it to that towards the woods for that.
The
that
building.
reason.
That's correct. It's just on the wooded side.
The driveway or the entrance into the 3-car garage, is in the 30-foot side yard setback, I guess. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so
But-
do you know how far that edge of that driveway is from the property line?
I don't have that with me right now.
Because theoretically, you could have three or four cars sitting there. You know, I get it, it's not a house, but it's a driveway with potential for parking. So you understand what I'm saying? It looks like it's, I mean, I can't,
I just want to be clear. There's no variance requested nor needed to the north. Is that correct? Meaning,
That is correct.
doesn't a driveway require variance?
Director Yunish can speak to that.
Flat work is exempt from the side yard setbacks, or quite frankly, from most of all the setbacks, due to the fact that it's flat work and it supports the residents. If it's 12 inches or greater above the final grade, then it is considered a structure and does have to adhere to the setback requirements. But if it's not over 12 inches in height, it's allowed in the setbacks.
I know that.
Mr. Chair.
Yep. Please go ahead, Ms. Keefe.
So I unfortunately do not have the answer to how old that structure is on 311, but 312, size lane. But 312 is located in our Wildwood Historic Building Inventory and is dated at 1938. So it's hard to say if they were built around the same time, but I would probably look. I would probably look to that date.
Yeah, it doesn't look new, that's for sure.
Do you know what exit I need to get on next?
I can't understand you, Mr. Young.
I think that's Mr. Young, you're not muted.
My apologies.
Okay, the mystery voice.
So just to clarify, there is nothing needed on the north side there. Mr. Rouse, do you want to add to the thought process there is how you came about on that side?
We put the driveway on that side and the garage on that side, so it would not, when you drive in, you wouldn't see a side car garage. Is the reason why we went to the north side. If I got that right. That's why we went to that side, so you wouldn't see the garage.
Any other questions for Mr. Rouse? I believe Mr. Schlegel has another comment he would like to.
Just a little bit of Wildwood history. I know you had trouble pronouncing the road. Anybody have any ideas how it got its name? The first three owners on the property, including the property that I own, was Corliss, Yale, and Sontag. They took the first letter of their last names, and that's how the road got its name. True story. George Yale was one of them. Mr. and Mrs. Corliss was the house I purchased, and Mr. and Mrs. Sontag live across the street at 311. So, any questions for me?
So just to, in general, we want all the residents in the city to
feel good about where they live and why they live there and so forth. So you're objecting to this because, help me understand that again. What is your primary issue?
Well, I don't want the houses to be closer together. And I don't know what's going to happen to the 9.9 acres. But when we start issuing variances and reduction, that sets a precedent. And there, I lived there for 40 years and the houses are far apart. And that's great. I like that. And now we're saying, no, we don't want that anymore. And that's not right. That's not right. And then the second thing is that it's been that way for 20 years, 25 years, the 30-foot easement. So when whoever purchases that property knows that that's there. And can you build a 2-story house there? Absolutely. With more square footage. But you got to work with 30-foot easement. So just my opinion.
As we kind of talk through scenarios and kind of preferences, it sounded like a front-facing garage.
Pardon?
It sounds like a front-facing garage could work. It's not desirable. What are your thoughts on that?
I've seen it, like the diagram, but I haven't made any. I can't tell you how that's all going to.
The reason I ask that, and I don't think any of us want to get into kind of those scenarios, but ultimately what we found in some of these scenarios is the alternative is worse than the current. And what I mean by that is if all of a sudden that house needs to be shifted 5 or 6 feet to be compliant and a front car garage was put up, I was just curious if you had any initial reactions to that, looking into the garage rather than 5 feet less of grass.
Our garage is front garage. I mean,
Yeah, no,
we drive right into it.
There's no right or wrong. I was just curious.
Yeah. 311 has no garage. And 312 had a little lean-to, but that also faced size line. Was not a side end.
Any other questions, comments for Mr. Slagle? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Rouse, anything else that you would like to add? Thank you. Any other speakers in the audience or online? It's not in the audience, but.
The only attendee online who's not present as a panelist is our city administrator. Administrator Lee, if you would like to talk at this time, please raise your hand. No hands are raised. Thank you.
Mr. Schlegel, just to be clear, I'm sorry, you're sitting down. We're kind of processing this as we go here. Did you say that back in 2021, I guess, when we dealt with this last time, you were not made aware?
Usually, if there's somebody that's doing something in the neighborhood, Joe, maybe you can, if it's so many feet from my property, there's I have it. Well, it's the ones you put in I get one of those in the mail. Yeah. I get one in the mail.
Right.
But I did not get anything on 315 size lane, because otherwise I would have been there.
In 2021, yeah.
Correct. Now, also, I read through the minutes that there were 2 people or 2 responses that were negative in 2011 or 2021.
Director Venus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Due to the fact that we save all of the information relative to the advertisement of the petitions as well as the background materials, I know this is hard to see, but this is the 2021 mailing radius. And the mailing radius, at least according to this, included everyone on the private street, as well as, in this instance, 3,000 feet beyond. They're postcards. Some people see them, don't think it's an official notice. The post office, we get a lot of returns because they're damaged by the machinery. I can't explain why this particular property owner didn't receive it. All I can tell you is it was in the radius and a card was generated. I can guarantee you that. We do this every week, 52 weeks out of the year. And for the most part, other than the ones that are damaged by the post office, we get returns, but they're because no one person on the card doesn't reside there or it was undeliverable. Certainly our goal is always to get the information to the property owners within that radius so they can participate in the process. In this case, we have the verification that it was in the radius, and we aren't good at all things, but we're pretty good at getting the mailings out. Thank you.
Sounds like the process was followed and just hasn't, and it didn't change since 2020.
I can't hear.
For the benefit of court reporter Courtney, basically what I was saying is that in 2021, the picture before you on the screen has a public hearing sign that is pretty standard that we put out at the same time we send out the postcards, and 50 blank postcards are located in that kiosk so that residents may see the sign and, you know, go find out what is happening, why there's a public hearing. So I just wanted to follow up with what Director Vunich said and said that this mechanism was in place then as well. Thank you.
And that's on the property 315.
Yep, that was 315 in 2021.
Thank you.
2021, we went through this process through Zoom, wasn't in person.
That would be correct. Yeah. Any additional questions, comments from the board? Would anyone care to hear an oral presentation of the department's report? This time, the Department of Planning like to make any final comments pertaining to this petition?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, the department is continuing to support this request for the same reasons it supported it in 2021. The lot is very narrow. There is a grade change towards the rear of the building area that constricts the layout of the home. Generally, Wildwood views the side entry garage as preferable to a front entry garage. And there is a minimal impact to the south, given that vacant 9-acre property there that provides a pretty substantial buffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. At this time, we will close the proceeding for a vote. Can I have a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or a motion to approve with conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions that the 30-foot side yard setback is maintained at the rear of the property, and then it can step up to 20 feet, which would be what the historic side back distance would have been when this lot was divided up and established. So if you go back to where the covered deck is and run a line north-south from the 30-foot to the 20-foot, that's what I would be proposing. That way that they're not allowed to build anything further back on the site.
Good, Dr. Venus.
Again, so the department's clear, but Board Member Lee is suggesting is that the 20-foot setback be only applicable to the dwelling itself.
That is correct.
Do we have a second for Mr. Lee's motion to approve with conditions as stated pertaining to the change in setback?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. We have a second. Mr. Morris, how do you vote?
Approve.
Mr. Sides?
I didn't hear it.
Mr. Sprunger?
I didn't hear Mr. Sides.
Deny?
Deny. Okay, Sprunger. Sprunger.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still thinking.
Yeah, we can go. We'll come back to Mr. Sprunger. Mr. Lee?
Approve.
I vote to approve with the stated conditions.
Ask a question while we're waiting for him to you.
We have closed. We've closed.
Oh, okay.
Closed.
Yeah, this is Mr. Sprunger. I'll approve.
Just
To summarize the vote,
Yeah.
the variance is approved by a 4-1 vote. We do have one other item, the approval of the minutes, I believe, from the last meeting.
Did you? I apologize. I was listening. Did you vote?
I did. I approve.
Okay. I apologize. Congratulations. The variance is approved. I did not hear that, Mr. Sprunger. Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead, Director Venus. Okay.
I can't hear anything if you're talking.
Last item on tonight's agenda is the minutes from last meeting for consideration and action.
And remind me on the process of that, Director Venus, it's still rather new.
A motion to approve the minutes and then a second, and then we'll request chair if there's any modifications or changes the board members would like to make. And if not, then you would just ask for a voice vote.
Right. Seeing we don't have Mr. Lux here, our attorney, to to catch the grammatical errors, we'll have to. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as they're stated from last month's meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we have a second to approve? We do a full vote on that?
Just a voice vote is fine, sir.
Okay, Mr. Morris? Mr. Sides? Mr. Sprunger?
Approve.
Mr. Lee?
Approve.
And I approve as well. Minutes from last meeting are approved. Any other business, Director Venich or Ms. Keefe? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you much.